Hi, everyone. Sorry for the delay today. Muttle, do you hear me? Is the sound coming through? I don't hear you. You need to unmute yourself.
How about now?
Good. You hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, my dear friends, sometimes you have to practice what you preach, or sometimes you preach what you practice. Our event today is our get together today is going to be a practice of everything I was planning to share with you today before Shabbat. I decided to change the venue for today. Just see something here. I decided to change the venue for today, and I got delayed in traffic, and therefore I couldn't make it on time. But everything teaches us a lesson. So we're going to go ahead with our pre-Shabbat program. Thanks to technology, things may look a little bit different since I'm doing this actually from my iPhone as opposed to my comfort zone of my regular computer in the office, as you usually see me. But it's Friday, Shabbos is coming. This is a very important Shabbos as it brings us just 1 week closer to Rosh Hashanah, and therefore you can't not do our session today to share the inspiration and getting us spiritually attuned for that great day. But as we always begin, Muttel will open up a song. Uh, Honestly, we were so trying to get this together today that we didn't go through the song sheet of what Muttel will sing, but I'm sure he has something good up his sleeve or up his guitar. What do you got for us, Muttel?
I'm just going to sing a melody for bringing in Shabbat for all of us together. It has to do with the lighting of the candles.
Great.
How about that? It goes like this. Bring in the light of Shabbat, lahadlik ner Shabbat. It's very nice. It goes like this. Bring in the light, bring in the light, bring in the light of Shabbat, lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Bring in the light, bring in the light, bring in the light of Shabbat. Hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat, shalom. May you have a peaceful time. Shabbat, shalom. May you have a restful time. Bring in the light, bring in the light, bring in the light of Shabbat. Hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat shalom.
Well, that was, that was very nice, Muttel. A nice little cheerful intro after a pretty, let's call it exciting last hour and a half. But we're here, and it's Shabbos. And it's good to be together. And of course, Mata will share with us some more Shabbos songs and Rosh Hashanah songs when we're done, the sermon part. But I'd like to begin with a story that is appropriate on many different levels. And that is that there's once a guy at the post office. And this is a tribute to the very hard work that our postal officers do. And there's a lot of, forget the politics of it, but they're also going through challenging times. And this guy in the post office, his job was to make sure that all unaddressed mail gets to the place it needs to go. And one day he gets this letter on his desk with very shaky handwriting. It says, God. Where's God's address? So he opens it and reads it. He figures, listen, he's not going to send it to God. He doesn't know where to send it, but let's see what it's about. And a very heartfelt letter says, Dear God, I'm an 83-year-old widow living on a small pension. And yesterday, someone stole my purse. It had $500 in it, which was all the money I had until my next paycheck. The issue is that Passover is coming. I invited 2 of my friends who are also widows to come and participate in the Seder, but I don't have the money to pay for the Seder. Without that money, I can't have food, they won't have food, and I don't have any family to turn to. And she concludes, Can you please help me? The postal worker who saw this letter was very moved, and he wanted to help out. So he went around to all the postal workers at his branch and started collecting $1, $1.50, 50 cents. And by the end they were done, they made $486. Not wealthy people, but they brought up $486, and he puts it into the envelope and leaves it on the doorstep of this lady's return address. And the rest of the day, they all felt so good. All these workers, postal workers, felt so good about the great deed that they did. Passover came, Passover went, and they get a new letter addressed to God. They were all so happy. What is this lady, what's this old widow going to tell God about the great act? He says, "Dear God, how can I ever thank you for what you did for me? Passover was wonderful. I told my friends about your amazing gift. But by the way, there's $14 missing. It was probably stolen by those lowlifes in the post office." You can imagine what they felt like. Sometimes you do something good, and people judge you, and people misunderstand. People don't understand what you actually had to do to do them that favor, and they're not grateful. So many things happen, but do we really appreciate what that person did for us? And I have a little secret. God may also have that kind of feeling. God does so much for us. God gives us so many blessings. God gives us so many opportunities, as we'll talk about. Do we appreciate it? Or like this woman saw the negative that maybe these people stole the money instead of seeing what they really did do. Do we focus on the negative things in our life, the challenges and the struggles that we have to deal with? Or are we able to really see the positive behind all this? And this is the message that we're really learning about the challenging times that we are in, but how to approach it, and how do we begin the upcoming Jewish New Year. So this Monday is a very special day. It's not only Labor Day, but it's also a very special day on the Jewish calendar, on the Hasidic calendar. It's the 18th of the month of Elul, 18 days into this month of Elul. Now, that carries a lot of weight in the Hasidic community, because that's the date that hundreds of years ago, the Baal Shem Tov, who was the founder of the Hasidic movement, and his successor, the Alter Rebbe, who wrote the Tanya, who founded the Lubavitch branch of the Hasidic movement, were both born. Very special day. When a soul comes into this world, and you realize what that soul has accomplished in retrospect, you realize how special that birthday was. And what was the main teaching of the Baal Shem Tov with his innovation of the Hasidic idea? It was two things that I will tell you, and you'll say, "Rabbi, I heard that from you so many times." Well, now you know where I get it from. The Baal Shem Tov taught two important lessons. One is that everything happens for a reason. There's not one thing in this world that is not there for a purpose. Here we're sitting with the trees behind me. And he said, when a tree falls down from a leaf, it's for a reason. You never know where that leaf ends up and which little insect it will feed. And if a small leaf falls off a tree for a reason, certainly things that happen in our life as well. And the second teaching was, a soul comes into this world. You and I, our soul comes into this world. And so many things happen during the 70, 80, 90, 100 years that we may be living. But all that happens, and everything that happens with the soul coming into the world and living its life, is so you can do a favor for another person. Think of that. This great mystic, this great spiritual leader, the Baal Shem Tov, revolutionized Jewish thought by introducing this idea that all the great wisdom and all the great knowledge and all the great things that we do and happen to us is so that you can do a favor to another individual, to another person. These are the things that God does for us. He puts us in situations, and those situations, if we use it properly, will bring about great impact on many people's lives. So I'm going to share 3 stories. One that happened over 100 years ago, the one that happened in the last decade, and the one that happened last night at the Flyers game in middle of the second overtime. And I hope all these stories will bring this theme that everything happens for a reason. There was once a chassid over 100 years ago in the times of the the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe, who lived in the city of Polotsk. Now, in the city of Polotsk, you had a lot of chassidim, but these chassidim weren't really owners of great expensive watches. But this chassid was a watchmaker. He would make watches, repair watches, and his watches were well known. But you need a market, like anything, supply and demand. And his business wasn't going well. So he had an opportunity. He came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe tells him, he actually came to the Rebbe with a proposal that he received, that if he can move to the town of Vladimir, which was not close, which was far from this Hasidic town of Polotsk, there's a great market, a great demand for a good watchmaker. Should he do this? It will affect his spiritual life, because he won't be living in the spiritual comfort of Polotsk, but at least he'd be making a living. The Rebbe Marash, the Rebbe tells him, good idea. Why don't you travel there and you should be successful? And in fact, this chassid travels to Vladimir, and guess what? One watch, another watch. He has really become very famous and known and successful. He was so successful that he had to hire 4, 5, 6 employees and then up to 10 employees. He was making it. And all the time that he was successful in his business, he remained true to his spiritual self. He would study daily. He would pray daily. There's one thing that bothered him, though, that in this city of Vladimir, there was no religious life. There's no religious support system. There were Jews there, but they were very ignorant of their Judaism. They barely knew they were Jewish. They would come to synagogue, but they didn't know how to read Hebrew. They didn't know how to experience the beauty of their religion. In fact, they were all excited that he came, not because he had watches, but because he was able to read the Torah and lead the prayer. Finally, someone knew how to do that. But for his own spiritual development, he was thirsty. There was no one to study with. After a while, everything was successful. He wanted to go back to the Rebbe and thank him for his blessing and his advice. He goes into the Rebbe, back into the town of Lubavitch, a Russian town, and he gives the Rebbe a note, giving him all the progress of his business and thanking him for his blessing and advice. And the Rebbe asks him, kind of almost ignores the letter, and says, do you learn with anybody in Vladimir? The chassid looks at her and says, learn with someone? There's no one to learn with. I barely have time to be able to read Torah for them, to lead their services, to lead their prayers, to do my work. And even if I would want to learn with someone, there's no one that is on my level to learn with. And the Rebbe looks at him and says, why do you think you went to Vladimir? Because they needed a watchmaker and you needed to earn a living. Don't you think God could have created another opportunity in a different town for you to be, where it would be better for you spiritually? He created that opportunity to get you to Vladimir so you can teach these people and elevate their souls. Because bringing these 2 teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, everything happens for a reason, and that reason must lead you to help another person. This is the story of this chassid, the watchmaker, who learned that his success with selling his watches was not about the watches, but is about giving him the ability to help raise a community, teach a community, lead a community, help another Jewish soul. Story number 2. About, I think it was 15 years ago, there was a Lubavitch chassid, not particularly a rabbi, and he was at a friend's wedding up in Montreal, Canada. Now, I don't know if anyone has driven, if you have driven to Montreal, you know that upstate near the border for many, many hundreds of, I don't know, hundreds, but many miles, it's just a 2-lane highway, and it could get very dark at night. I drove it. I drove it looking for a gas station. When my little son Mendel was a little baby, we were going to a wedding. It could be pretty scary, pretty daunting. But when you're driving alone, it's certainly daunting. And this individual's coming back from the wedding. After the wedding, he wanted to do an all-nighter. He had to get back in time for the next day to do work. But in the middle, he just couldn't. He had to find a place to sleep. And it's not like the Turnpike or US 1 around our place where you have all these different hotels. There wasn't a hotel to be seen. And he's driving and looking for a sign. And then he sees there's a sign, motel, and you have to get off the exit. He gets off the exit. He goes to mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles. And, you know, when you don't know where you are, it's many miles. He finally sees this little red sign, hotel. He walks in. The receptionist is half asleep. He says, I'd like to have a room. He says, I have no room. We're all booked. What's he going to do now? He's in this little dark village or town upstate New York somewhere, and there's no place to sleep. He said, please, I need a place to sleep. She tells, I'll tell you, there's an old age home about 2 miles down the road, and sometimes they have empty rooms, and they will rent it out to people who travel. Try them. So he has no choice. He goes to the old age home. He goes to the receptionist. Woman there is excited and happy. It's like middle of the day. People are up in the middle of the night, and says, "How can I help you?" She says, I need a room to sleep." She says, "You know what? Actually, one of the rooms emptied out today, so let me get it ready for you, and I'll get you the room." This guy's wondering, "Oh my gosh, why would a room empty out today in an old age home?" Think of it. But he had no choice. He had to put his head down. He goes to sleep. He's happy he has a place to sleep. He wakes up the next morning, is about to leave. He thanks her so much for helping her. And then he realizes, listen, this story is a little unusual. Why did I end up in this place? Out of all places, there must be a reason. I need to see, is there a Jewish community around here? Maybe they need some help. Maybe something, they need me. So he goes to the receptionist and asks the receptionist, do you know of anybody Jewish around here? She says, Jewish? You don't have any Jews around here. So think, anybody Jewish? Then she says, by the way, actually, that room you slept in? Well, the fellow who occupied that room, who died yesterday, was Jewish. And we're actually waiting for the priest to come and do the rituals for burial. So what? The priest? He's Jewish. I said, yeah, but there are no rabbis around here, so the priest just do everyone. Says, leave it to me. I'll take care of it. He's not a rabbi, but he said he'll make sure that this Jewish soul gets a Jewish burial. He thought he knew now. Now I know I'm here. So he looks around for Jewish communities. He can't find any Jewish community. There's one about 5 miles down the road. He goes there. The synagogue is open, but goes into the reception. He says, the rabbi's out for this week. We can't help you. So, okay, where's the next community? He says something about 15 miles further down. So now he's 20 miles away and very far off the highway. He goes to that community. He speaks to the rabbi, and he tells the rabbi, this is the story. I have this guy that I met in this old age home, and he needs a burial, and I don't know what to do. And he says, I'll take care of it. Because in our cemetery here in the community, we have a empty plot that someone donated a number of years ago. If anybody would ever need and can't afford it, perfect. We'll bury him here. Guy said, well, now I really know why I'm here. And they start preparing the funeral preparations. They're working together. And when the chassid who slept in the room gives it to the rabbi, the certificate, the rabbi almost falls off his chair. He says, you don't believe this? This guy, this fellow who we're doing the funeral, I'm so happy you brought him back. He left our community 5 years ago, and he left the community, and we haven't heard from him since. And we were all so concerned about him. I'm happy at least we can bring him back. To his community. And then the rabbi tells the Lubavitcher Chassid, And I'll tell you even more. Before he left, he sponsored that empty lot for someone who may need it one day. And here he is, coming back to his community in the lot that he bought because you decided not to leave the hotel because there's a reason that you're here. So many things happen in our life. And what's beautiful to me about the story, in addition to all these different things that just came together, was I'm impressed with this chassid, with this individual. He was tired, he had to get back to work, but he realized that there's a reason that this particular story happened. And you need to remember how to use that reason. There's so many times in our life we get these messages and we could just dismiss it. Just happened to be the place that I needed to sleep, but let me move on in life. If we do that, we're almost like the letter to the postal workers who really didn't appreciate what their postal workers did. But if we stop and think, why did God put me and gave me this circuitous way to end up here this morning? There must be a reason. Then we will be able to find so much more opportunity and meaning in our life. Which leads me to last night's Flyers game, win in second overtime. I wasn't watching the game. I was busy in a late night conference with our fellow shluchim. But those in the other room that were listening, I was able to see what was going on, hear what was going on. When you hear all the reactions, they almost made it, they lost, they didn't lose, it was a tie game. And then I hear this eruption. So after my late night conference with the shluchim, 11:30, I saw what happened. And what happened? What happened in the middle of the second overtime in game six, an improbable win for our home team, the Flyers. A stick broke. The opposing player, I don't know exactly, I don't remember, I didn't watch the play completely, offense, defense, but one of the opposing team's players' stick broke. And that opened up a moment of opportunity for our black and orange to score. If our players weren't quick enough to seize that opportunity and that break that they got, no pun intended, who knows what would be happening in Philadelphia today. But this is what happens all throughout our life. We get these breaks. We get these moments of opportunity. And that's the moment that God has put you into this world to make a change. My friends, we didn't have a moment of opportunity. We had months of opportunity over the last half a year. And hopefully this will end soon. What are we doing as a result? Are we looking at it as the postal masters taking our money, God forbid? Or are we appreciating how much work was put in to get that money? Are we looking at this as, let's just get out of this, get this over with? Or do we see in this an opportunity that God is giving us and something that we can learn and grow with? And we're starting a new year, and let this new year be a year of good blessing. And we'll speak more about it as we enter. But we have to understand those two teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, that everything that happens is for a reason. And that reason we're here is to help another person. What has these last 6 months helped you in helping another person? I can answer that I can ask that to myself, and I have to answer to myself. Ask yourselves and give yourselves your own answers and make it a positive response to create positive change. I want to wish you a good Shabbos. Stay posted for our Rosh Hashanah plans. There's a lot of things that are in flux and changing due to the incredible response that we're getting. So stay tuned. But for now, let me bring up our good friend Matel, who's going to share some pre-Shabbat. And let me just see how to do this on the phone. Just give me 1 second. Layout. There you go. There you go. All right. There you are, Matel. Give us a niggin.
Hi, Rabbi. Yada da 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 da, yada da 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 da, yada da 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 yada da 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 da, yada da 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 da.
Koach. One more happy song as we enter Shabbos, or the spirit of Teshuvah, of Rosh Hashanah, of the high holidays. And with that, we will close this Shabbos session. I hope you're all able to hear. I hope it came off as little glitches as we can. And see you next week. Matal.
I die, 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 and die, 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 I die, 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 I die, 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 keep on moving. Keep on moving, keep on moving, keep on moving. Ay, 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 keep on moving, keep on moving, keep on moving, keep on moving.
Yasher Koach Matal. Good Shabbos, everyone, and hope to see you soon. Have a meaningful Shabbos. Have a introspective Shabbos. Have a Shabbos of serious introspection, but serious introspection done joyfully. How could that be? Stay tuned. Good Shabbos. Let me get on our closing, what do you call this? Let's get this little animation going.